us.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. How are you? Hello. Welcome to John Sello's Laid Back Storytime. I just sat down. It's Tuesday morning. I had yesterday off because it was Valentine's Day. So if you're watching this 3 years from now and you don't know what day it is, it was Valentine's Day yesterday. I think that's in February. I'm all chill and laid back, and I did my jogging today, and it's all good. So we're working on AJ Llewellyn's Mingo McCloud series. And this thing is fucking hilarious. I'm not sure that it was intended to be hilarious. It's gotta be. Some of the shit that goes down in this is just, it's comedic. It's hilarious. It's funny. And yeah, these two guys don't stop. What's the word we used to? Fucking. They don't stop fucking. They just fuck a lot. There's a whole lot of fucking going on. So I attempted to record another Storytime video for this a couple days ago, and there was no fucking in that one, and it surprised me. I was like, there's fucking in every chapter. But, you know, we like to get the fucking in. Have I said that word enough times? We like to get the fucking in the Storytime episodes. Anyways, we're going to do the Storytime thing, and this is going to be kind of a long one. Typically, these chapters are a little on the longer side, so, if you want to hang around for some of it or whatever, there are absolutely spoilers ahead, but I don't know. This kind of series you can jump in and out of. It's basically they it's like Mingo McCloud solves mysteries and then he goes and fucks another guy. Yay! Mingo McCloud solves mysteries and then he's going to fuck another guy. That's pretty much what it is. And it's great. It's fantabulous. So we're going to get into this. We're in chapter 4 in book 2. And I got to name my file here. This is a real live recording session, kids. So you're going to hear fuck-ups from me and everything else. Tracy is in the background. You are there, right, Trace?
I am here.
Yeah,
Hi.
Tracy will correct me whenever I mess up, which is quite often. And this is what you're actually going to hear on Audibles and Amazons and other places where these books are sold. I don't know where you get them from.
They will hear you, not me.
They'll hear you too. You come across in there.
Not on Amazon Audible.
Oh, no. I should just put you in there. I think that's probably a good idea at this point.
No.
You should be in the books.
Really shouldn't.
All right. So, in this chapter, when they get home, Francois gets Mingo out of the car and throws him over his shoulder to carry him inside. The kidnapped businessman fantasy, built-in remote control, retractable sex sling. Be prepared. Francois is off to the airport in the dark of the morning. Mingo doesn't know how he will survive for 5 days. More background on Mingo's mom and Francois' family. Mingo calls his mom. Then he makes a lunch date with Melee and Leilani. They are immediately smitten over coffee and pie. And by the end of it, they are leaving to get a hotel room. Mingo busies himself with work. Francois is in San Martin. He calls and says a hurricane is coming and he needs to get out as soon as possible. Mingo doesn't hear from him again for several days. He's in panic mode. Mingo calls everyone and finally gets through to Christine, Francois' sister. She says he is gone from the hotel and his room has been ransacked. Melee. Okay. How do you say it?
Melee.
Melee. All right. So the stress is on the first syllable, not the second one. Melee. Here we go, with less cum in my throat. Chapter 4. Francois had the look of determination in his eyes as we arrived home. I knew he had something in mind and was not surprised when he came around to my side of the car, pulled me out, and threw me over his shoulder. The way he marched through the house told me we were about to play one of our favorite fantasy sex games. "I love you in this suit, Mr. McCloud," he rasped. "Oh, I was right. I'm the kidnapped businessman who he rescues. Please God, I love this fantasy." I couldn't keep the smile off my face, especially when he threw me on our bed, opened the closet, and pulled out our sex sling. He pressed a button and the harness came down from the ceiling. I reached into the bedside drawer and extracted the black faux fur-lined handcuffs we used for this little game. I snapped them on my wrists in front of me. Francois hooked up the sling beside the bed. He adjusted it to the height he wanted it. I grinned when I saw that it was at his face. I felt my heart flip-flop. "Mr. McCloud, before I hand you over to your family, I think you owe me a very special thank you." "No," I said. "Please. Come on, Mr. McCloud. I bet you'd enjoy having a man suck your ass." "No." I shook my head. "Never." He grabbed me by the cuffs and yanked me toward him. "So you're saying if I were to suck your ass and cock, it wouldn't be a turn-on?" "No, it wouldn't." He unbuckled my belt, unzipped my fly, a little ferociously, I thought. I tried hard not to get an erection, but I loved and wanted this man. "I think this cock is a little excited," he said, rubbing me through my tight Calvins. No, an involuntary reaction. Let's see if you can come with my tongue in your ass, and then we can discuss other...
Let's see if you come.
Can you say that again a little slower? Through my tight Calvins. No, an involuntary reaction. Let's see if you come with my tongue in your ass, and then we can discuss other involuntary reactions. He hoisted me up to the sling. I lay on my back. He took my pants and shoes off. He took a little longer removing my underpants. He moved my socked feet into the fabric stirrups. "Inch forward, Mr. McCloud." I did. My naked ass was hanging on the edge of the sling. He kept the handcuffs on me, and I felt my breathing grow shallower as he leaned into me and took one of my ball sacks into his mouth. He released it with a pop, working on the other one. He tongued my cock from the base to the tip. He licked off the cum trickling over the ridge. He tongued my cock from the base to the tip, working on the other one. He tongued my cock from the base to the tip. He licked off the cum trickling over the edge. I knew what was coming next, and I was beside myself with excitement. He stroked my asshole a couple of times, looking at it. "You like this, Mr. McCloud?" My whole body was open to him. I gazed in mute desire at him. He kissed and licked my hole as I lay there, my legs raised, my ass exposed, completely at his mercy. He sucked my ass until I came all over my second-best suit jacket and favorite boss shirt. I humped his face as he touched my cock, gripping it hard as I started to shoot. "You ever been fucked, Mr. McCloud?" "No, never." He lowered the sling. I wanted him so badly, and he tilted the whole apparatus so that when he dropped his pants, his massive, miraculous cock jutted out of me between it. Well, that'd be interesting. "Fucked, Mr. McCloud." "No, never." I think I can sound even more innocent there. Started to shoot. "You ever been fucked, Mr. McCloud?" "No, never." He lowered the sling. I wanted him so badly, and he tilted the whole apparatus so that when he dropped his pants, his massive, miraculous cock jutted out at me between his thighs. "No!" I roared, but he merely chuckled, coming over to my face and feeding me his sweet stick. It's like a lollipop. He chuckled, coming over to my face and feeding me his sweet stick. I sucked on it. He put his fingers into the mess I'd made on my belly and shirt and licked them. He slipped his index finger into my mouth, along with his cock. Oh, fuck. It's like I have two cocks and you're sucking them both. Lust took over his handsome face, and I knew he'd want to fuck me in his circle. Fuck. It's like I have two cocks and you're sucking them both. Lust took over his handsome face, and I knew he'd want to fuck me any second. He moved around to face me again. "Beg me for it, Mr. McCloud." I did. The swing moved back and forth, and I thought I would pass out from the sensation. He adjusted the height again with his remote control. The swing moved toward him. His cock entered me. At this height, and the tempo with which the swing propelled me to him, it wasn't long before my prostate went hog wild. He stepped in closer, gripping my thighs in that possessive way of his. With the sling, I could keep my legs up without any effort, giving him full access to me for longer periods of time. It also meant incredibly powerful orgasms for both of us. "You look so beautiful," he said as he settled in for a deep, fast fuck. I came so hard I saw white spots before my eyes, and still he didn't come. He drilled me deeper and deeper, and I felt
And still he didn't stop.
He didn't come either. I came so hard I saw white spots before my eyes. That could be the white spots. You are right. I came so hard I saw white spots before my eyes. And still, he didn't stop. He drilled me deeper and deeper, and I felt him coming inside me, filling me up. "Don't send me back to my family," I said when I could finally speak. He grinned. "Don't worry, Mr. McCloud. I'm not through with you yet." And that would be a scene break. We should shorten the theme song. There should be like a solving crimes and punching people and fucking round the world. Something like that. We should make it like dun, 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 solving crimes and fucking people fucking round the world. You yet. After a torrid afternoon having fun with a sling and a long, indulgent night in bed, I sent my man to the airport with no sleep at all when it was still dark the following morning. I walked outside with him, and we exchanged all the shaky kisses we could squeeze in before he left. I smiled, watching him wince as he got behind the wheel. "I think my balls will appreciate a small separation from your hot-ass Mingo." Ask? Yeah, I don't think that's what he was talking about there. Before he left, I smiled, watching him wince as he got behind the wheel. "I think my balls will appreciate a small separation from your hot-ass Mingo, even if my heart doesn't," he said. Every inch of our bodies ached in wonderful ways. Although I wanted to drive him, he insisted I stay in bed. His work fee would cover...
And although I wanted to drive him.
"I believed you," he said. Every inch of our bodies ached in wonderful ways, and although I wanted to drive him, he insisted I stay in bed. His work fee would cover his parking costs at the airport. I didn't argue too stridently. It was, after all, 5 o'clock in the morning. When the gate closed on his departing SUV, I tried not to worry. I had to be positive. No harm would come to him. He said it was a straightforward case. I knew he was also planning to look up his sister and her husband on the island. He said they lived in the Dutch portion of San Martin. San Martin. I know how to say it, I just don't sound natural. I knew he was also planning to look up his sister and her husband on the island. I knew he was also planning to look up his sister and her husband on the island. He said they lived in the Dutch portion of San Martin, and for a moment, I felt left out. He'd assured me that once he reconnected with her, the next time we'd visit the island together. I hurried inside, debating making coffee, but sleep claimed that once he reconnected with her, the next time we'd visit the island together. That once he reconnected with her, the next time we'd visit the island together. I hurried inside, debated making coffee, but sleep claimed me instead. It only worked for a few hours. I rose, showered, dressed, checked messages and emails, and felt stupidly empty and unhappy. He'd only just left, and I had another 5 days without him. 5 days. In the early days of travel to Hawaii, had another 5 days without him. 5 days. In the early days of travel to Hawaii, the mode of transportation was, of course, by sea. My grandmother, who arrived here inside. In the early days of travel to Hawaii, the mode of transportation was, of course, by sea. My grandmother, who arrived here inside her own mother's belly, was... Well, who else's mother's belly would he... Okay. In the early days of travel to Hawaii, the mode of transportation was, of course, by sea. My grandmother, who arrived here inside her own mother's belly, was born on board the Lur Line, the cruise ship which had the motto...
Stop. Lurleen.
But the I-N-E makes the I... Well, it makes the I long. Let's see if we can find a reference. Yes, always. That's literally a rule. It makes the I long. Come on, Lurleen. Oh, I swear you. Now you're going to have that in your head all day long. Mingo McCloud. Lurline. It makes sense to be Lurliner, you know. Big old Merliner.
From Kohala. And he had a wonderful time on the Lurleen, where he played guitar and formed a band.
Fuck you, Tracy.
Rough draft to Lurleen, our mentor.
The Lurleen would come in, and so
They don't obey a single English language rule. And it doesn't have the same ring to it. Come on, Lurleen. Oh, I swear. It doesn't. In the early days of travel to Hawaii, the mode of transportation was, of course, by sea. In the early days of travel to Hawaii, the mode of transportation was, of course, by sea. But I gotta know. How did you know that was Lurleen instead of Lurline?
Because I've heard the name, actually. I've
When?
actually heard somebody named Lurleen.
When? When did this happen in your life? You're making this shit up as you go along, aren't you?
I am not making this up. I spent like 12 years in Georgia, remember?
You are... What does Georgia have? It's on the complete other side. There's like a whole
It's a
continent.
redneck name.
Lurleen is a redneck name. You are feeding me a line of hogwash, I do believe. It's all right. Whatever it is, however it works with your brain, you're always, well, not always, but the vast majority of the time right. To be fair, you're dealing with a blithering idiot, so you're probably going to be right more often than I am, but still. All right, here we go.
Stop that.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to. Feel free to entertain yourselves while I ask Tracy why she's so smart. In the early days of travel to Hawaii, the mode of transportation was, of course, by sea. My grandmother, who arrived here inside her own mother's belly, was born on board the Lurleen, the cruise ship which had the motto, "To Honolulu in 5 days." She was born hours within docking in Honolulu. Her birth was registered here. My mom still had photos, and the old Frank McIntosh shipboard menus that she kept as mementos from my grandmother. I wish the ship still sailed so I could take her on it. Unlike Francois, I'd been close to my mom until she had met a guy online a year ago and absconded to the mainland with him. Absconded. From my grandmother. I wish the ship still sailed so I could take her on it. Somebody in the Discord crowd asked, you mean the English language actually follows a single language rule? It does until people fuck it up like that. Yes. We have rules, but then people come in and they fuck it all up, and then we don't have rules. See, this is why we can't have nice things. From my grandmother.
I can tell you exactly where I
wish
heard
the ship
name.
still
On the
sailed.
Barbara Mandrell show.
Jesus, the Barberman. Oh, it's probably on Nick at Night, right? You couldn't possibly have watched the Barbara Mandrell show like when it was
I
airing.
did.
No. You told me you were 34.
Barbara, Louise. Okay, keep going.
To be honest with you, I have no idea who Barbara Mandrell is. None whatsoever. I've heard of the Barbara Mandrell show before, but if you line me up with like Barbara Mandrell and 2 other old ladies, I wouldn't know who was who. I wouldn't be able to pick them out in the crowd. Somebody else in the crowd who happens to be from the South and her name's little Alyssa Gramling was like, she's a country singer. Because you guess I'll probably pray to Barbara Mandrell every night when you go to bed. By the way, I'm going to say something very controversial here. I love Dolly Parton. She's a fucking wonderful human being. I love her huge tracts of land. Even like it's all amazing to me, and I have very fond memories. But I saw her on the Super Bowl commercials. I watched the Super Bowl, by the way. That's the first sports ball game I've watched in like 2 years. But I saw her, and man, you can tell when people get like the facelift work done in their younger years, because then they get older and it's all just wrong. And like there's just let yourself age. Just let yourself age. You gorgeous older lady. You got those huge tracts of, I mean, you would be fine. Just don't, ladies, don't get the work done ever. It's just not Just let it, we're fine with wrinkles. Just let it go. There are exceptions to this. If you want to get boob jobs, that's fine. From my grandmother. I wish the ship still sailed so I could take her on it. Unlike Francois, I'd been close to my mom until she'd met a guy online a year ago and absconded to the mainland with him. Now that fiasco was finished and she was back. Neither of us could ever stay away from Hawaii very long. In fact, my mom once told me she cried when she left the island and would cry when her plane landed again. Yeah, listen, I'm an ass man too. I mean, I'll take it all. I am certainly an ass man before a boob, but fine. Ass jobs are okay too. Now that fiasco was finished and she was back. I got distracted by ass. With him. Now that fiasco was finished and she was back. Neither of us... Got a little cum in my throat. Fiasco was finished and she was back. Neither of us could ever stay away from Hawaii very long. In fact, my mom once told me she cried when she left the island and would cry when her plane landed again. Her parents had loved Honolulu the first moment they set foot on shore, and thus began our family's love affair with Hawaii. Francois rarely talked about his past. I got snatches. I knew he had been born in the Caribbean, but his mother left his father when he was young. We had that in common. She had raised him and his sister alone in Paris, where she'd gone home to her parents. On a vacation back in the Caribbean, she'd met and married a man who bullied and abused Francois and his sister Christine. I managed to get him to talk about this painful chapter of his life one time. The second time I broached it, we'd had a few cocktails at a friend's birthday party, and he told me he had run away from home when he was 17. His sister married young, too, and they were not close. Now that Francois had me, he had tracked her down, and they had begun to exchange email. He was excited to see her again. Her husband owned a restaurant in San Martin, and she was a housewife. They had a grown son who had moved to Miami, Florida, which is where planes fly from into the Caribbean. I hoped their reunion would be a good one. I hoped to meet Christine and her family myself. It seemed a good omen to me that Francois even talked about the possibility. To me, it meant he was opening up to me more and more. There was no pressing business for me, and frankly, I hated being in the house without Francois. I thought I'd drop my contract to the attorney Francois had put me in touch with, but he was not available until the following day. So I called my mom, asking if she wanted to meet for breakfast. "No, sweetie, I've started yoga classes up at that lovely Manoa."
Very good. Manoa.
Thank you. I feel proud. So I called my mom, asking if she wanted to meet for breakfast. "No, sweetie, I've started yoga classes up at that lovely Manoa yoga place." "Well, how about lunch then?" "No, I have an origami class then." What was it with the classes all of a sudden? "Well, how about dinner?" "I have a hot date," she trilled. "Where did you meet him?" I asked her quickly. "Just be happy for me, Mingo." Happy? Yeah, right. I was really happy after the last one urged her to the mainland and took her for every dime. I was super happy when I learned that he conned several women all over the country. My mom had met with him. I was super happy when I learned that he conned several women all over the country. My mom had met him in Honolulu when he flew in for R&R after serving our country in Iraq. It seemed to me he had an awful lot of online access and downtime to be emailing her from a war zone. However, Hawaii had sent more men to Iraq and Afghanistan than any other state, and when I asked a few women I knew whose sons and husbands were on the front, they got regular emails too. War was different these days, I decided. Once he came on island, they stole a lot of hot kisses and quick dates before, as a commanding officer, he was due back at the Marine base in...
Kaneohe?
You said that with a question
Yes, I'm
mark.
sure.
All right. I got regular emails too. War was different these days, I decided. I got regular emails too. War was different these days, I decided. Once he came on island, they stole a lot of hot kisses and quick dates before, as a commanding officer, he was due back at the Marine base in Kaneohe. Was that right?
Kaneohe.
Kaneohe. One more time with feeling. I got regular emails too. War was different these days, I decided. Once he came on island, they stole a lot of hot kisses and quick dates before, as a commanding officer, he was due back at the Marine base in Kaneohe. Once I saw him, I couldn't believe it. My mom invited me to dinner, and I kept staring at him. He was butt ugly, fat, and had funny eyes. There was also his problematic. What's wrong with being ugly and fat and having funny eyes? My mom invited me to dinner, and I kept staring at him. He was... Believe it. My mom invited me to dinner, and I kept staring at him. He was butt ugly, fat, and had funny eyes. There was also his problematic hairpiece. It didn't fit him or even match his natural hair color. He was bizarre. Somehow, though, he charmed her Lady Haynes' size 8 full briefs right off her butt. Within weeks, he got Mom to sell our family home and move to the mainland. She soon found she was but one of many lonely women fooled by this guy, and he was married to somebody else on top of it. In fact, his wife had helped him keep up with his array of demanding women, often writing his emails for him. For my mom, it was her first foray into online sex via email and instant messages. She was mortified when it became evident during court proceedings that she'd been having some of these hot sessions with his wife. "Does that make me bisexual?" she kept asking me. "I don't want to be bisexual, Mingo. I love men." I'd gone after him and got a judgment against him in court. I'd represented my mom and another woman in... Halo or Hilo? So I represented her in a helicopter? "I don't want to be bisexual, Mingo. I love men." I'd gone after him and got a judgment against him in court. I'd represented my mom and another woman in Hilo on the Big Island. Both had been duped by him. Both were pissed at one another, yet he was the villain. So I got a judgment, but getting the money, as is usual in these circumstances, quite a different story. "Okay, Mom. See you Sunday night," she said. "Hug Francois for me. Tell him I love that new remote. I can water the garden, watch TV, and turn the coffee pot on without lifting more than a finger. I love that man." She wasn't the only one. I spied lovely Melee's business card on my newly carved Francois desk.
Melee.
I'm never going to remember that.
Melee.
I love that man. She wasn't the only one. I spied lovely Melee's business card on my newly carved Francois desk, and in spite of his instructions to stay away from Leilani, I called her. "Want to hook up for lunch?" I asked her. "There's somebody I want you to meet." Lei was thrilled to hear from me. We arranged to meet once I checked on Melee's availability for lunch at Sam Choi's Breakfast, Lunch, and Crab on Nemitz Highway. I felt a lot better when I got off the phone. I now had something to do, apart from cruising internet law sites trying to hunt for work and mooning about my husband. It had now been 4 hours and 17 minutes since Francois had left, and it already felt like hell. I would say that's a good stopping point for our Storytime video segment extravaganza. Y'all enjoy yourselves, have fun. This should be out sometime by the end of the week or early next week or somewhere in that range. And that would be somewhere in the midst of the 3rd week in February 2022. So have fun, y'all. See you soon. I will talk to you later after I hit this button right here.